Hello everyone and welcome, Amanda here. Thanks so much for joining me. So I'm here today to share the free images that I have posted over on my Facebook group for my mixed media challenge. This is week 8. And then I'm going to show you a really quick tip in my journal. And then I'm going to share my layout process with you, hopefully to inspire you. That part will probably be sped up with a voiceover. So here are the images for week 8. And the previous 8 weeks are available in my Facebook group. The links are in the description box below, along with a playlist with all the previous videos. So this week, a lovely follower asked me to do something with greens. So there's a lot of green here. Oh, it's nearly all green. Hints of yellow. And I've kept it a nature theme because we're doing nature and kind of vintage. And so we've got a lovely collage background sheet, all with nature and leaves, etc., all in shades of green and cream, which you can rip up and use as your background or do whatever you like with. And then we've got this main page. So I've done this frame here. So the idea is that you cut this centre part out. Or, you can keep it if you like. It's totally up to you. Then we've got a lovely elf-like flower fairy. She's absolutely gorgeous. And just a couple of butterflies. We've got some sentiments. Sit and listen to nature and believe in the magic. I've done them on a white background. You can ink them. You can do what you want. And you may think that that's quite a lot of wordage, but what we tend to do is chop it into parts and stagger it down the page. Okay, or you can use it as is. I've actually printed 2 out because I think I'm going to be using this frame twice and it gives me extra butterflies. So the quick tip that I've got to show you before we start, if you find that your pages are sticking together in your book as your book gets, thicker and the weight of your pages are heavy, here's a tip. If you've got one of these, I believe its technical name or the brand name is Dust Buddy, and it's basically a bag filled with, I'm not quite sure what it is. It's for embossing. It's an anti-static item that you put all over your page before you do embossing with, embossing ink and a heat gun. And what you can do is you can gently rub that all over your page if it's a little bit sticky and your pages are sticking together. Okay. All over. Okay. And then I just brush the excess off with a large brush. So if you're using a medium that leaves a sticky residue, that's one thing you can use. If you don't have one, you could use something like cornstarch. The old-fashioned way is get some stockings or tights or whatever you call them, pantyhose, a couple of layers, make a little bag and put some cornstarch in, and you can dab that over and then brush it off. It just takes the stickiness off if you're finding that that's a problem. So week 8, I'm going to get my items fussy cut and we're going to get creating. And we're off. So I kind of always have a general idea of my layout. I kind of plan it before I start. And then whatever happens from there happens. And there's quite a few errors in this. I'll tell you as I go. I've not edited them out. I've just sped it up and cut out most of the drying. So I'm just using the collage. I've got an idea of where I want placement. And I'm just using a glue stick. I don't suppose the brand matters. Because we're going to go over the top of it with a matte medium, which will ensure it's down. Just make sure you've got good even coverage so that your paper doesn't bubble. But yeah, we don't really need to worry about that. So again, I'm just checking my layout. I check it quite a few times because then it helps you plan what you're going to do in those blank spaces. And I'm adding some just normal white gesso all over the white space, and then I'm spreading the remainder that's on my brush onto the collage, but that's a very light covering just to blend the edges a little bit. I don't really need to tone the colours down because the colours are lovely and subtle, so I do sometimes literally rub it in with my hands. I don't mind getting my hands in there. I understand if you don't like it. Dried it, and then we're back, and I'm using some acrylic paint here to create just a really quick watercolour, what I call a watercolour smoosh background. These are metallic effect acrylic paints, and I'm using a piece of plastic. What's it called? What, you know, like window sheet. I can't think what it's called. It's gone. I'm start off with a light blue, and then add a bit more water to make it nice and so that it flows on the page. Dry it in between before you put your next colour on so that they don't mix together. And this is like a teal aqua colour, and it's just creating me a quick background. It's covering over that white really fast and really quickly. It's giving you a random look so you're not overthinking it. And there we go again. I'm pointing to the heat tool. That means you need to dry that layer. So I'm just checking my layout again because I think I want to do some embossing. Now here comes something that didn't quite work for me. I had it in my head that I wanted some really vivid white heat embossed script on my page. So I set about doing it, not really thinking carefully what I was doing, and it didn't quite work, and I'm going to show you why rather than edit it out. So I'm using the correct things, I'm using the correct techniques, but I didn't think carefully. Now that acrylic paint is a little bit sticky, and so my powder has stuck to the entire page and not just the embossing ink. So I'm brushing some of the excess off with a paintbrush. It kind of defeats the object because now it's not going to stick to my stamping. So I've ended up with small amounts, and I'm heat setting it there that do work and the rest doesn't work. So I've had a little think, and I'm thinking, how can I overcome this problem? Because, you know, I'm quite determined. I never give up. There's always a solution, or you can just change what you're doing. So I had a think, and I came up with a solution to stop the embossing ink sticking to the paint. Now you can see my brain whirring, and I'm using my dust buddy, and that has got like a powder in that you use to remove static from your page when you're heat embossing, and that has removed the tackiness of the acrylic paint. So I'm having another go because I've got it in my head. I want this white heat embossing. You know when you've got an idea in your head and you don't want to sway from it. And so here again, I'm heat setting it, and I'm not cutting this bit out so that it gives me time to tell you why this technique didn't really work very well. Now, it didn't stand out on my page like I wanted it to. It wasn't vibrant, it wasn't bold, it was barely noticeable. So it could be that my embossing powder is old and it's just not great. It does have, you know, bits of dirt in it. It's quite old. It could just be that my script stamp, this script is not actually large enough, so the stamped area is just not enough of a, you know, focus. But I just carry on going. It doesn't matter. It kind of blends into the background and it doesn't stand out. I did consider doing it again with black, but I knew that black was going to be just too harsh. I'm going for a soft look, a soft vintage kind of watercolour look, so the black would have just not been right. So now I'm adding my frames. It was meant to frame the script, but it's not worked. But it doesn't matter, I'm not giving up. So I'm using the matte medium to glue the image down, and then I'm painting over the top with it as well, which will seal it. I've said it again and again and again, and there will be an instance later in the video where I will demonstrate why we do it, okay, because I make a mistake, but I'm able to wipe it off, and I will highlight that when we get to it. So I'm just collaging here. So if you don't have mixed media items, you can totally just collage. Absolutely. You can fill that background with book pages or other collage sheets. You don't have to use paints. It's not for everybody. Not everybody likes the unpredictability of it. Not everybody likes putting paint on the hands and getting in a mess. I totally understand. So you can just totally collage. You can still stamp and stencil and do what you like. So now I'm adding the butterflies. I did print the images out twice so that I had plenty of butterflies. And I'm just arranging them mostly on the far side there, on that page. and just one on the same page as the little elfie fairy. And whilst I'm going, I'm also thinking where I'm going to put my words, because that can determine where you're going to stick your items, because you want space to put your words. So I'm having that one hanging off the page and trimming it off. I just think it looks cool. And here I'm thinking about doing some stamping with black ink, and I actually changed my mind. And so here now I'm going around some of the images with a water-based brush pen. And because they're water-based, I can, after I've put the pen where I want it, I can load a brush with some water and treat that like watercolours. And it's just giving some emphasis to the edges and a little bit of shading. It's also going to give a more of a watercolour look. So it's kind of enhancing the smoosher acrylic watercolour look background that I did earlier. And this is something where you can build up in layers, so you can let it dry, then you can put some more on, and you can, you know, make it as dark or as light as you like. Make it darker by adding more pen and lighter by adding more water. So I do actually do a couple of places where I do more than one layer of this, and I go around the edges and then I kind of smoosh it out as well, so that it looks nice and smooth rather than looking like a harsh line all the way around. And I go quite dark at the bottom there to try and add some contrast. I want the centre of that far page on the left there quite light, so that the darkness of the colours to the very far left kind of contrast against the white. And I will later be adding some more gesso there. So here I'm using that water-based marker again, and I've just drawn on literally around the edge of the page, and then I'm adding some water, and that will give me a soft but slightly darker edge. If you've got a darker edge, it draws the eye in towards the images. That's the theory. I just love messing, and I will keep playing with a page until I like the look of it. And so here you can see me going in with my hands and literally rubbing the gesso into the page. It gives kind of a really nice dreamy look. And by adding these kind of highlighted areas, again, it's emphasising the darker ones. And, you know, it just draws your eye and it's adding interest. And I'm just, to be honest, I just like getting paint on my hands. It makes me feel like I'm a proper artist. So once I've washed my hands, I come back and I'm adding my words. I've inked all the way around the edge with an archival ink, which is permanent and waterproof, in case I decide I'm going to add anything further over the top, then it will not smudge. Okay, giving nice space in there. It's all right to have blank space, even though I do tend to fill my pages somewhat. You don't have to. And I'm adding the words there as well to the second page, so that I've got a lovely double spread. And here I'm deciding, do I want to add some ink, and do I want white splatters or do I want black? And because I learned earlier that the white embossing powder didn't really stand out with my design, I've decided to go for black. Now here's where I make a mistake. Are you watching? It's coming in a minute. There, I touched the page with my brush. Now that would have been a disaster, but because I've got the matte medium, I can wipe it off. It's protected my page and I can clear it off, and my mistake, nobody knows. Don't tell anybody. So then I'm going in with a white gel pen and adding some highlights to things. You won't be able to see this on camera, but you can see it in real life, as it were, and it just adds a little bit of highlights to some of the images. And again, it highlights and contrast all add depth. And here I'm deciding whether I want to do squiggly lines. That's my finished page. I wasn't brave enough. What I wanted to do was do like squiggly lines just on the corner there and on the corner there, and I'm just not brave enough. I'm going to do it. Okay. Okay. I'm going to do them overlapping. Doesn't matter. Even though I've got if I'm going to say it to you, I've got to learn to do it myself. It doesn't matter if it's not perfect and it doesn't turn out exactly as planned. This page has had a heap of errors in it, okay, and it's fine. It doesn't matter. In fact, I'm going to do it in all four corners. So I'm just doing a wiggly line, and then I'm going to go over the other way, because you've got to learn to let yourself just be and to go, okay, and that includes me. So no point me sitting here lecturing if I'm not going to do it myself, and be prepared for it not to be perfect, because it doesn't matter. I really enjoyed that page. It was a learning curve for me. I hope you enjoy it too, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.